Hey guys, welcome. We'll let it fill up a little bit, and then we'll get going. Today, we'll cap off our third video on the mental conditioning part. This is only the tip of the iceberg stuff. There's obviously a lot more involved in it, and I just kind of wanted to, in this series, make it as simple and as easy as possible for us, so we can kind of implement some of this stuff into our games or our seasons this year. I do recommend, if you guys are, really trying to dive into this stuff, go get some books and really start to follow some mental conditioning experts out there. That's where I learned a lot of my stuff. It's where I got a lot of my stuff, and where I'm continuing to teach and implement to our kids here at TPA. So I recommend definitely looking into some of that stuff. We'll go ahead and get going. We got a couple more people that I know are about to join. This is the third episode of our mental conditioning series on the Diamond Show, what we're calling it. It's just something that I'm doing throughout the next, probably the next 6 months, every single Tuesday night at 9:15. It's really just something to give back to the players, local players, players across the country, and try to grow kind of what we're trying to put out there to our kids, and grow the knowledge of youth coaches, amateur coaches, and really try to help the players out there to become the best baseball players they can be. So that's what we're doing. Definitely to like us, share these videos on Periscope, on Facebook, so we can kind of spread the word and we can keep this rolling every single Tuesday night. If you're on Periscope, definitely keep clicking those likes. Last week I gave away a hat for over 1,000 clicks or 1,000 likes. This week I'm going to give away probably a t-shirt. We got a bunch of extra gear that we got laying around that I want to get out and give to you guys for supporting the show, supporting kind of what we're putting out there. So keep clicking the likes on Periscope. At the end of this, we'll do this for the first time. If you guys do have any questions, feel free to write them and comment. At the end, I'll open it up for question and answer, so we can kind of dive into it. If you have any questions about what I've talked about this episode or prior episodes, or even just questions about baseball in general, looking for some advice, I can spend the last couple minutes answering those questions. So without further ado, we'll get going. Today we're going to talk about our focal points, the 3 emotional states that we have or that we go throughout the game. And then if we have some time at the end, we'll talk about some ways we can study the pitcher and then how we go about studying the pitcher. So first thing is the focal point. A focal point, guys, is really anything that serves as a release to get rid of kind of all the unproductive or negative thoughts that we might have going on throughout the game. Those can be obviously, not having success, our failures, crazy fans, pressure of the games, something to get us to completely relax and dial into kind of what we're doing. So focal point can be looking at a sign, picking out second base, anything on the field. For our kids, I mentioned this earlier in last week's episode, we have these little bat rings that they look at, looking at our barrel, anything that can serve as a release to forget about all the unproductive or negative thoughts that might be creeping through our mind. So we definitely need to implement, I don't care if you're 5 years old or you're 25 years old, you definitely need to implement some type of focal point and pick out a focal point for yourself. And it doesn't need to be mine. It needs to be your own point that works for you. Pick that out and use that throughout the year. It's going to help you to be confident and, like I said, get rid of those negative thoughts. So focal point's one, and then some other releases that we can have might be swiping the dirt in the batter's box, rubbing your batting gloves with dirt, picking up dirt, doing whatever you need to do to really get rid of those negative thoughts. In terms of negative thoughts, we have 3 emotional states that we go through in a game. All right, so we'll jump right into this. We have our red, just like a traffic light. We have our red, we have our yellow, and we have our green. Our red emotional state is obviously the worst. Something we might be 0 for 3. We're going into our bat completely non-confident. Nothing is going our way throughout the season. Our batting average is horrible. we're completely concentrated on our mechanics, and we're completely distracted up at the plate. We're worried about how hard the pitcher might be throwing. We're worried about having success throughout that at bat. We are not dialed in at all. All right, so that is our red state. To go even further into that, we may not even be doing our pregame routine. We may not doing our on-deck routine. Everything is the game is speeding up super, super fast, and kind of everything is going away. So that's our red emotional state. In terms of being distracted, I'll leave this with you guys real quick. There's 12 different counts between 0-0 and 3-2. There's 24 combinations of outs and base runners. So if you multiply those together, there's 288 different situations that could be going on in a given at bat. All right. So if we're distracted by any of those, we are not going to be successful. Okay. And that would be getting in our red state. Our yellow state would be, I have a game plan. I kind of know the way I want to execute it, but I'm not fully bought into it. I might be going up to the plate thinking fastball, but I see that hanging breaking ball and I go ahead and attack it. Right? That is, to me, a yellow player. They're not sticking to their routines. They're not sticking to their plans. It can also mean, you started the game hot. You guys all know that player that got their first at bat. They did really, really well. And then they get up that second at bat and they have a good rest of the tournament. Well, it could also, yellow could be, hey, we had our first good at bat. And then throughout the game, our at-bats are not as effective or not as consistent. So by that fourth or fifth at-bat, end of the game, we're really, really focusing on the last 2 or 3 at-bats that haven't really been successful. So that's kind of our yellow state. And then our green is something, obviously all of us would like to get into. Athletes call it being in the zone. It's being completely confident, basically up at the plate, can't wait to get up to the plate to hit the game-winning hit or game-winning double or whatever. And to me, the most important thing here is how do we get to that point? And this kind of culminates everything that we've talked about throughout the last 2 episodes. So we get to that point in green by, one, in the middle of a game, concentrating on our focal points, taking deep breaths, sticking to our routines in the game, but not only in the game, but the second we wake up. All right. So the second we wake up and get ready, we're starting to visualize. We're going to the park. We're visualizing. We're going through our same routine. When we get to the park, we're going through our pregame routine. When we get on the on-deck circle, we're going through that routine. Okay. We're kind of staying consistent, we are staying consistent throughout that whole day and that whole at bat, and everything is consistent. That is the key to this game, guys. So we want to get to green always, and we want to be able to recognize kind of the states that we're in. All right, if we don't recognize where we're at, then we can't fix where we want to go. So it's very, very important we kind of know our 3 emotional states we can be at throughout the game, so we can get ourselves to green. Obviously, green is in the zone. It's a confident player, and it's a guy that's going to be the most successful throughout the season, and then obviously most successful in that given situation. I said I'd talk about it. I talk about studying a pitcher and things we can do to be more effective in game. One of those is obviously studying a pitcher. So we talked about in our yellow state kind of having a plan and not really buying into it. I can tell you a ton of high school baseball players, I bet you even professional baseball players, they go up to the plate with a plan, and they get up there and they finish their at bat, and they go back to the dugout and being like, holy cow, I had a plan, but I didn't stick to it. All right, and the most successful hitters are the ones that are definitely going to stick to their plan. So how do we develop that? Well, if you're in college baseball and you're facing the same team throughout a whole weekend, you can kind of figure out on Friday night and definitely first couple of bats on Saturday how they might be pitching you, how they might be pitching your team, and kind of have a plan and build your plan throughout that weekend. If you're in high school, it's the same thing. I mean, if you're playing the local high school team, you might play them 2 or 3 games. You should understand, how they're going to pitch you. A lot of times in high school and college now, guys, the coaches are calling all the pitches. So I doubt it's going to change much depending on what type of pitcher is coming in. So start paying attention to how teams are pitching you throughout series, and recognize kind of the way they're trying to attack you. Now, to dive in that a little bit further, Okay, we have generally about 3 or 4 at-bats a game. Well, we want to have you guys concentrate on our teammates at-bats. So now instead of having 3 or 4, we're having 30 at-bats a game or whatever it is of our teammates. And we're starting to pay attention and realize how our teammates are being pitched to. What is the other team doing when a runner gets in scoring position with less than 2 outs? What are they doing the first time through the lineup? How are they starting this? It's very, very important that we start looking at that information. So now when you get up to the plate, you do have a plan. So a lot of people are like, well, Coach Scott, this is guess hitting. Well, to me, it's not guess hitting. It's educated guess hitting. All right. We have a plan and we have an attack, and we're going to stick to it. And the most successful hitters are the ones that stick to their plan. Like we said, that's being in green state. All right. So it's very, very important that we do all these things, guys. To recap everything we've kind of gone over today, we talk about our focal point. Find something that works for you, the outfield sign, second base, your batting gloves, the dirt, whatever it might be. Find something, stick with it, use that as a release, take a deep breath, and kind of get you to your green emotional state. Recognizing our 3 states, you got red, you got yellow, and you got green. Traffic lights, so recognize when you're red, recognize when you're in yellow, and realize and try to get yourself to that green emotional state. And then obviously how we go about studying the pitcher, some effective ways. We not only have 3 or 4 at-bats a game, we have 25, 30 at-bats. We're starting to recognize how our opposing team is pitching our hitters. What they're doing in certain situations, like I said, runner in second base with less than 2 outs, runner in scoring position less than 2 outs, how they're throwing our 2, 3, 4, 5 hitters, what they're doing in certain counts, how they starting off, are they pitching backwards, second time through the lineup, are they pitching backwards? I mean, there's a lot of different things that go on throughout the game that we need to recognize that can give us a better opportunity when we jump up to the plate. So a couple of things before we head out. I'll definitely open it up to some questions if you guys do have some questions for me. We're going to do this every single, like I've said before, every single Tuesday night, 9:15. It seems to be the best time for us to get everyone together. We'll continue. I think next week we might dive into some pitching mechanics, and then can kind of continue through. I might have some of my pitching guys go through what their philosophies might be and how they go about teaching. Follow me on YouTube and Twitter. There's definitely some good stuff on hitting mechanics, how we go about teaching our kids here at TPA, and how we're going to continue to go about teaching. I release a video every single Friday on various topics regarding baseball, and I plan to continue to do so throughout the rest of the year. So if you guys have any questions, I'll leave it up to the next couple minutes, and we can answer your questions. Keep clicking the likes on Periscope, guys. I'll give away a t-shirt if anybody got to over 1,000. And if you want, go ahead and start shooting some questions. Ryan, I see you're on here. Ryan, who works with us at TPA, he's one of our hitting instructors. Honestly, I've learned a lot from him. On Facebook, he asked, "Hey, Coach, if the other team is consistently pitching me balls in the dirt and I keep swinging at them, how can I not swing at them?" For one, if we're swinging a lot of bad pitches, he knows the answer to this question, but if we're swinging a lot of bad pitches, a lot of times we're probably speeding up the game. In our load, when we're up at the plate, if we're speeding everything up, we're going to be inconsistent in terms of how we attack the baseball. So I would say, if you are having trouble with your pitch selection, slow down your load, slow things down. Going into our mental state here, you can recognize that you're probably in a red state if you're consistently swinging at bad pitches. So get yourself to that green state, find a focal point, take a deep breath, relax. And then slow down your load, and you should be able to, or you should start swinging at more consistent strikes as opposed to chasing everything. Does anybody have any questions for me regarding anything baseball? It doesn't have to be stuff that I went over tonight. It could be stuff for future episodes as well. anything regarding baseball. If you have a question, shoot it out on Facebook or Periscope. All right, if no one has any questions, I'll what's my favorite baseball team? That's a tough question. I grew up in Chicago. I root for both Chicago teams, believe it or not. My cousin, I was fortunate enough, he made it up to the big leagues with the Chicago White Sox. I was born a Chicago Cubs fan, so right now I root for both the Chicago teams and want to see the city of Chicago represented well. So I'd say one of those two teams. Ryan with another good question. How can parents help their kids get to green? I think talking about parents and how they can positively and negatively affect our kids throughout the game and throughout our seasons. It could be a topic for a long discussion. How we can get our kids to green, man, is honestly take a step back. Sometimes parents are too involved or put too much pressure on our kids, and I think kids just want to be. They just want your acceptance. They want you at the end of the day to grab them and say, hey, you really enjoyed watching them play that day. So if we can be a positive influence in their lives and while they're at the plate or in game, then we can definitely get our kids to green. So continue to fill them up with positive encouragement, not giving them too many mechanical things to work on in game is definitely a way that we can get our kids confident and get them to green. Any more questions? Ryan, you're coming out with some good ones, man. If you got some more, shoot some more out. No more questions? All right, guys, we'll wrap it up for today. Look to join next week. Next week on Tuesday, 9:15, we'll probably go in and dive in a little bit about pitch mechanics. I might have some of my pitching guys here to kind of explain some guest speakers. And then we're also going to have Bill Berniston, who is our sport performance coach here. He's worked with USA Baseball. I'm trying to get him on the show to talk a little bit about some of this mental conditioning stuff and potentially strength and conditioning aspect involved in this show, just to kind of answer any questions or give you guys some more well-rounded advice in terms of baseball and how to get better. So thanks for tuning in, guys. We'll look to see you guys next week. Make sure you like and share these videos so we can continue to grow this show and reach out to as many people as possible. So thanks again, guys.